Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is an animated superhero film that continues the story from the first Spider-Man into the Spider-Verse movie. In this sequel, we follow the adventures of Miles Morales, the Spider-Man of his dimension, as he encounters alternate versions of Spider-People from different dimensions. On Earth-65, located in New York City, it has been over a year since Gwen Stacy, also known as Spider-Woman, aided in the defeat of Kingpin alongside Miles Morales. However, Gwen finds herself grappling with the challenge of forming meaningful connections with those around her. She experiences a sense of isolation in her role as Spider-Woman. Recently, she decided to leave her band, which triggers memories of her last close relationship with her best friend Peter Parker. Peter Parker and his Aunt May shared a strong bond with Gwen and her father, Police Captain George Stacy. Despite this close relationship, Gwen never disclosed her secret life as a superhero to any of them. During their school days, Peter was a target of relentless bullying, despite Gwen's efforts to stand up for him. Unbeknownst to Gwen, Peter began experimenting with a hazardous chemical. The night of the prom took a disastrous turn when a massive lizard-like creature attacked the school, targeting Peter's tormentor. Reacting swiftly as Spider-Woman, Gwen engaged in a fierce battle with the creature, leading to the collapse of the building. In a surprising turn, the creature reverted back to Peter, who suffered grave injuries from the rubble. In his final moments, Peter disclosed that he had discovered Gwen's true identity as Spider-Woman. Despite the dire circumstances, he provided reassurance to Gwen before passing away in her embrace. The devastating scene was discovered by Captain Stacy, who found Gwen grieving over Peter's lifeless body. Misinterpreting the situation, he concluded that the masked vigilante had caused Peter's demise. Consequently, he initiated a citywide manhunt for Spider-Woman. In the present day, Gwen returns to her home and encounters her determined father, who remains steadfast in his pursuit to apprehend the supposed killer of his daughter's closest friend. Despite Gwen's attempts to dissuade him, Captain Stacy departs to address a disturbance occurring at the Guggenheim Museum. Gwen swiftly follows him as Spider-Woman, incapacitating the police officers outside and entering the scene. Inside, she discovers a vulture manifested in parchment form from another dimension, causing chaos within. Caught in a perilous situation, she finds herself immobilized by the antagonist, only to be rescued by an interdimensional wanderer named Miguel O'Hara, also known as Spider-Man 2099, the esteemed leader of the Spider Society. Miguel discloses that the Vulture, along with similar beings, has been involuntarily traversing alternate realities ever since the incident involving the Collider in Miles' world. Despite his advanced suit and abilities, Miguel struggles to control the Vulture from the Renaissance era, prompting him to employ his artificial intelligence companion, Lila, to request assistance from Jessica Drew, an alternate Spider-Woman. Working together, the trio successfully halts the Vulture's rampage, safeguarding both civilians and law enforcement in the vicinity, albeit with Miguel contemplating the use of his concealed fangs. In the aftermath of the intense battle, Gwen's web resources are depleted, and she sustains injuries, prompting her to pause and recover. However, her respite is short-lived as she becomes trapped and confronted by Captain Stacy, who aims to apprehend her. Faced with limited alternatives, she reveals her true identity as his own daughter, a revelation that leaves him astounded. Despite her earnest attempts to explain her innocence in Peter's demise, he remains steadfast in his decision to arrest her. Just as he is about to carry out his intentions, Miguel and Jess intervene, poised to transport the Vulture back to their dimension. A persuasive argument from Jess convinces a hesitant Miguel to permit Gwen to accompany them, sparing her from being left behind in isolation. Several months later, situated in Brooklyn on Earth 1610, a fresh and emerging minor antagonist by the name of the Spot attempts an ill-fated robbery at an ATM. The foundation of his criminal endeavor lies in his unique spots, which possess the ability to conjure portals. However, he struggles to wield control over these portals, resulting in a series of unsuccessful attempts. In response to this situation, Miles Morales, also known as Spider-Man, swings into action to thwart the Spot's ambitions. Miles approaches the situation with a lack of seriousness towards the seemingly unthreatening criminal. It is evident that the Spot lacks competence. Despite the Spot's claims of being Spider-Man's arch-nemesis, Miles dismisses this notion. Just as the Spot is about to elucidate his standpoint, Miles receives urgent messages from his parents, Jefferson and Rio. They are waiting for him at his school, where a meeting with the principal is scheduled to discuss his prospects for higher education. The impending familial engagement engagement compels Miles to expedite his confrontation with the Spot, yet he is compelled to depart promptly to meet his parents. Although Miles maintains a satisfactory academic performance, his grades have suffered due to unexplained absences, and all extracurricular involvements have borne the brunt of this as well. Miles' parents are apprehensive about his desire to attend a college in New Jersey, particularly one focused on studying dimensional travel. His abrupt departure from the scene, driven by the Spot's escape, prompts Jeff to follow suit, leaving Rio somewhat perturbed by the situation. Pursuing Spider-Man closely, Jefferson tails the web-slinger, who is once again engaged in a clash with Spot, the enigmatic figure seething with offense at Spider-Man's perception of him as a second-rate adversary. Amidst a flurry of teleportations, the trio inadvertently arrives within the remnants of the Alchemax Collider's wreckage. Within this decaying environment, Spot discloses to Spider-Man that their origins trace back to this very site. Spot discloses his former role as a scientist at Alchemax, recalling the incident where Miles flung a bagel at him during the initial film. He takes responsibility for the experiment that inadvertently brought the interdimensional spider, responsible for biting Miles, into their world. Similarly, when Miles dismantled the collider, the resultant energy surge led to an unfortunate mishap that irrevocably transformed Spot into the humanoid portal entity he has become. Condemned by his associates, companions, and even family due to his affliction, Spot's fury intensifies. His aggression targets Spider-Man and Lieutenant Morales, resulting in an inadvertent self-propelled plunge into a profound portal, sealing shut behind him. Jeff's exasperation mounts as the criminal eludes capture, and the aftermath of the skirmish leaves a trail of property destruction. In a moment of vulnerability, Jeff confides in Spider-Man about his struggles as a devoted father and husband. Masked in his secret identity, Miles offers his counsel in a somewhat awkward exchange before departing the scene. The narrative shifts to the Spot, who awakens in a void surrounded by an array of portals formed by his distinctive spots. His scrutiny of these apertures unveils the ability to traverse diverse dimensions through them. Yet, each transition consumes his vitality, precluding his return to the intermediary space. Determined to amplify his dominion over the void, the Spot resolves to amass greater power, driven by the objective of subduing Spider-Man. Miles persists in his endeavor to harmonize his life as Miles and his obligations as Spider-Man. Despite his tardiness to a significant celebration in honor of his father's imminent promotion to police captain, he diverts to acquire cakes, only to be repeatedly detoured by the demands of his superhero responsibilities on his way back. This series of disruptions causes him to miss his father's address. Upon his eventual arrival, the cakes are rendered inedible, prompting his parents to address his enigmatic conduct. Struggling to articulate a coherent explanation, Miles succumbs to frustration and vents his emotions in a tense exchange with his parents. Consequently, Rio and Jeff impose a grounding, leading Miles to storm off to his room in a fit of agitation. Abruptly, Gwen materializes through a dimensional portal facilitated by a watch bestowed upon her by Miguel. She extends an invitation for Miles to hang out, and the two of them suit up in their respective superhero attire. During their patrol, Gwen unveils her affiliation with Miguel's organization, the Spider Society. This alliance is dedicated to safeguarding the multitude of universes. The nocturnal patrol segues into a moment of respite, where Gwen confides in Miles about the profound connection they share. She discloses that he is the sole friend she has formed since the demise of her own Peter, paralleling Miles' own struggle against parental expectations. Contemplating the possibility of revealing his secret identity to his parents, Miles ponders whether honesty might be the best approach, but Gwen cautions against it. In a display of optimism, Miles suggests that their narrative could deviate from the recurring tragic pattern seen across various dimensions. This sentiment emerges as they rejoin the festivity. Gwen exhibits her watch, a device that facilitates dimensional jumps while preventing destabilization. Miles broaches the topic of joining the Spider Society, prompting Gwen's guarded response that hints at the organization's exclusive and specialized nature. An intrusion by Jeff and Rio ensues, their disapproval of Miles' friendship with Gwen immediately evident. Gwen's abrupt departure, guided by her watch, leaves Rio to converse with Miles in an emotionally intimate discussion. Despite his apprehensions stemming from Gwen's warning, Miles refrains from disclosing his superhero identity. Ultimately, Rio offers her blessing for Miles to pursue his connection with Gwen. Miles readies himself in his attire and traces Spider-Gwen's movements to an abandoned edifice that has recently suffered damage. Leveraging his abilities to become invisible, he stealthily pursues her into the structure. Inside, Spider-Gwen employs her wristwatch to reconstruct the preceding events, revealing that Spot devised a miniaturized collider to acquire the necessary power for interdimensional travel. This discovery rattles Gwen, and in the midst of her distress, Jess contacts her with evident frustration over her failure to apprehend Spot before his escape. It dawns on Gwen that she defied explicit instructions to steer clear of Miles, yet she contends that seeing him was imperative. She confesses to Jess that she intends to depart from Miles' dimension permanently, prompting the older Spider-Woman to offer a final opportunity to capture Spot before informing Miguel. Lila pinpoints Spot's location, leading Gwen to open a portal using her wristwatch. Driven by his curiosity about the Spider Society and his sense of isolation without his comrades, Miles takes a leap of faith and enters the portal after her. They find themselves in Earth 50101, specifically Mumbattan, a reality where New York has transformed into a sprawling metropolis in India. Coincidentally, Miles crosses paths with Gwen as she pursues Spot, who has gained greater mastery over his abilities, easily eluding her. In this alternate reality, Miles also encounters the local Spider-Man, Pavitra Prabhakar, who has assumed the mantle for just 6 months, but is already affiliated with the Spider Society. As a result of his displacement from his own universe, Miles begins to experience spasms, echoing the previous year's events. The trio trails Spot to Earth 50101's Alchemax, home to a fully operational collider. Spot barricades them with a force field and activates the device. Miles employs his venom powers to drain energy from the force field. A new Spider-Person emerges and effortlessly breaches the barrier using their own powers. This newcomer is Gwen's friend Hobie Brown, alias Spider-Punk, a British anti-establishment anarchist Spider-Man. With united efforts, they strive to prevent Spot from accessing the collider, but their endeavors fall short. Spot absorbs the power, transforming into a figure obscured by dark portals and unrecognizable. He taunts Miles about seeking vengeance for the consequences of the young hero's actions, before slipping into another dimension. As the edifice begins to crumble, imperiling Mumbattan, the quartet of spider heroes collaborates to evacuate civilians to safety. In a critical moment, Pavitra endeavors to rescue a bus containing his girlfriend and her father, Police Inspector Singh. Despite Gwen's warnings of danger, Miles undertakes the risky rescue, successfully saving the inspector, to the relief and gratitude of Pavitra and his girlfriend. However, a dark portal emerges in the heart of the city, ushering in a convoy of other spider beings, including Jess, who arrive to contain it. Jess commands Gwen, Hobie, and Miles to accompany her back to headquarters. While Miles welcomes the opportunity to join the ranks of the Spider Society, Gwen approaches the situation with a mix of caution and uncertainty. They arrive on Earth 928, in the city of Nueva York, which looks amazing and futuristic in the year 2099. They go inside the Spider Society headquarters. Inside, Miles sees many spider people from different dimensions, including a virtual Spider-Woman called Spider-Bite, controlled by a teenager named Margot Kess. Miles is surprised because Gwen had told him it was a small group. They give Miles a wristband to prevent issues. He also sees anomalies, villains from other dimensions, locked up to be sent back to their own worlds using a machine called the Go Home Machine. This machine recognizes their DNA and sends them back. They're asked to meet Miguel. Hobie advises Miles to think about why he wants to join and to be cautious about the methods they use. Miguel is angry at Gwen and Miles for letting Spot escape, especially at Miles. Then, Peter B. Parker, the Spider-Man who helped Miles before, arrives with his baby daughter Mayday. Gwen takes the blame, admitting she shouldn't have involved Miles against orders. Miguel decides to explain the situation. He shows Miles an algorithm that has information about each universe's Spider-Man and the events that connect them, like losing someone they love and becoming a hero. These are important events that can't change, or it'll cause big problems. Miguel broke the rules once and a whole dimension vanished. There's also another shared detail. A police captain close to Spider-Man dies trying to save a child. Miles saved Captain Singh, causing a dangerous energy to appear. Gwen tried to stop him to keep things as they should be. Miles realizes his dad will be made a captain soon, and Spot's vision shows his dad's death while saving a child. According to predictions, his dad will die in 2 days. Miles wants to save him, but Miguel and the others say they can't interfere because it would harm the universe. They're all sure about this, even Peter B. and Gwen. Miles disagrees, thinking the algorithm might not know everything. Miguel traps Miles, but he escapes with his venom powers. Hobie, proud of Miles, leaves the Spider Society and goes back to his dimension. Miguel tells all the spider people in the tall building to catch Miles, but he escapes them and goes down to the lower city. Peter B finds him and talks to him. He says Miles gave him the courage to be a father and asks him to give up. Miles disagrees and wants to save his dad, despite Miguel's algorithm. Miguel tracks them using Peter's watch. Miles runs away and gets on a train to the moon. Miguel follows him and catches him. Miguel is angry and tells Miles he can't join because the spider that bit him was from a different world. Miles is upset that Peter B and Gwen knew this, but didn't tell him. He uses his powers to weaken Miguel's suit and tricks the other spider people away from the headquarters. He escapes back there, activates a machine that scans his DNA, and gets sent away. Miguel is furious and wants to hunt Miles with Jess and Ben, known as Scarlet Spider. Gwen questions Miguel, saying maybe his algorithm doesn't know everything. Miguel sends Gwen back to her world. Peter B and Mayday return to their world and meet Peter's wife, Mary Jane. Peter worries if he can be a good father, but Mary Jane comforts him. Miles reaches New York, and Gwen goes to Earth 65. Miguel, Scarlet, and Jessica also come to New York. Gwen wants to go back to find Miles, but her watch doesn't work. She goes to her apartment to get her things, but her dad finds her. They talk and Gwen explains why she kept her alter ego a secret. Her dad says he's quitting the police force, and Gwen realizes he will no longer be a captain. They reconcile. Gwen gets a package from Hobie with a special watch made from Spider Society parts. She uses it to go back to Miles' Earth. Jess, Miguel, and Ben split up to search for Miles. Meanwhile, Miles is rushing through the city to his apartment, thinking about what the other spider people told him. He gets back to his room safely, and his mom finds him. Miles hugs her and talks quickly about everything that's happened to him. He decides not to be scared anymore and tells his mom he's Spider-Man, but she doesn't know who Spider-Man is and continues with her evening routine. Miles starts having strange movements because of dimensional stuff, and Gwen arrives in his room from Earth 1610. Miles realizes the go-home machine sent him to the dimension where the spider that bit him came from, Earth 42. His uncle Aaron, who's alive in this world, shows up. There's no sign of his dad Jeff, and his mom Rio is working a lot. Aaron takes Miles to the roof and mentions the plan. Miles notices this version of New York is full of crime and villains, and he sees that his dad has been killed here. He remembers that Earth 42 doesn't have a Spider-Man. Suddenly, someone knocks Miles out. In another room, Gwen overhears Mr. and Mrs. Morales talking, and they feel distant from their son. Gwen tells them it's her fault Miles hasn't come back, and Jeff gains some respect for her when he finds out her father is a cop. Gwen leaves to find Miles, and Rio asks her to remind him how much they love him when she does. Miles wakes up in Aaron's apartment, tied up. He tells Aaron he's from a different universe where their roles are reversed. He asks Aaron to remember he didn't want to be the Prowler. Aaron says he's not the Prowler and shows the real one, the Miles Morales from Earth 42. This Prowler Miles is interested in his story but won't let him go when Miles asks to save their father. The Spot arrived at Earth 1610. Gwen gathers a group to help find and save Miles. Her team includes Hobie, Pavitr, Margot, Peter B, Mayday, Amy Parker with her robot, Spider-Man Noir, and Spider-Ham. They begin their mission using Hobie's portals, while Miles starts to power up his Venom abilities. The movie concludes at this point, with the story set to continue. Thank you for watching, and I highly recommend watching the entire movie as it is incredibly enjoyable. If you haven't already, please consider subscribing to our channel, so you can stay updated and receive notifications whenever we upload new videos.